I'm Nick Hernandez, and you're listening to the Positivity Matters podcast. On this show, we talk about well being from a wide variety of perspectives. Today, I'm excited to look at it from the perspective of healthcare and leadership. Dr. President Jeffrey Gold is my guest today. He leads the University of Nebraska system, and thank you for being a guest on the show.
My pleasure. Look forward to our chat.
I believe I first heard your comments at talk by Dr. Greenberg on compassion, celebrating the 20th anniversary of CYFS, the Children, Youth, and Family Sciences, I believe, one of the centers that cuts across the University of Nebraska system and all its campuses. And then I heard you share again with the visit by Dr. Vivek Murthy, former Surgeon General of the United States, and I believe you yourself mentioned compassion at that meeting and or at that event and shared a little bit about being on a board with the National Academy of Medicine, if I'm saying this right, for clinician well-being. I'm detecting a theme here, but please tell me from your perspective um, what what drew you to, I guess, medicine, sort of spotlighting compassion, and yeah, what has that been like so far?
Well, first of all, thanks for the opportunity to chat. I always enjoy sharing some of my perspectives, and perhaps lifelong lessons can assist others as we go through this. You're right, there is definitely a theme. I've had a lifelong interest in well-being, positive psychology, mental health, and most importantly, human flourishing. I get asked all the time, what's the job of the president of a large university system, a public land grant system with a large academic medical center, 50,000 students, tens of thousands of employees. And I distill it quite simply to the concept of making other people's dreams come true, whether there are current or future students, our faculty and staff, whether it's the patients and the families we serve in our academic medical centers. It matters not. It's really about understanding where people are and groups of people are at any given time and doing our very best. I spent 25 years of my life as a clinician. I'm a recovering cardiac surgeon. I don't know if you ever recovered from that type of career, but took a lot of people's family members to the operating room. And interestingly, it was extremely rare that anybody would ask me where I went to med school, where I graduated my class, where I did my residency and fellowship training. And I would have been very pleased to tell them, but they never asked me that. The things that they really wanted to know were about whether I would be able to care for their loved one as I would care for my own family member. And that sense of caring was deeply embedded to me during my education and training periods, and to this day, I try to pay it forward all the time.
Who made a difference in your life along the way? Mentors of sorts, parents?
Yeah, so certainly one always starts with one's parents. I grew up in the inner city of New York with two loving parents. Unfortunately, my mom had a chronic neurological illness. She had multiple sclerosis and passed away when I was in my 20s. And I believe that in many ways she inspired me to a career in healthcare. One, because I was really very awestruck by the physicians and healthcare professionals that cared for her, in spite of the fact that she was really very disabled by this progressive disease. At that time, there was very little that one could do, either from a cure perspective or certainly even symptomatically. But I was also inspired by the fact that there were no answers, and that there was an opportunity to do research and to come up with answers in many different fields. And the combination of the humanism, the compassion that was shown even when there weren't easy, straightforward solutions to a problem. And at the same time, excuse me, the opportunity to really push back the frontiers and ask hard questions was both appealing to me. So in that respect, my home family life was very inspiring. But of course, along the way, we have mentors and friends and colleagues, and there have been so many of them. A good number of them were physician leaders who I met along the way, either worked for or worked with or knew about. Uh, and over time, that colleague list continued to grow. And what I realized was that if you really want to influence the future, you have to start off in the educational process. So after more than 25 years as a in the trenches clinician, going to the operating room almost every day, I pivoted and became a medical school dean. Before that, I was a department chair, went from that to being a university provost, a university chancellor. And now, as you said in your intro, for the last 2 years, I have served as the president, the ninth president of the University of Nebraska system, a very large public university system here in the state of Nebraska. So it's really been a journey, but it's been built upon wanting to lift up others.
It seems like that's um, going well. And uh, one term that I heard that might characterize the journey that you yourself are on is one that usually isn't used in self-description, and that is of a servant leader. This is by Robert Greenleaf, where the definition that he gives is it. My interpretation is someone who's able to sort of keep the vision of whatever scope the organization is or the group of people or focusing on the individual well-being of the people involved in it, and then also engaged in the communities where the entity is doing whatever it does in such a way that the lives of the people that are least well off are made better, at the very least, not made worse. That's sort of my understanding of what is meant by community serving leadership. Is that something that you are willing to admit to uh, contemplating, or
Well, I
is that
certainly try every day. I am well beyond the stage of my career where I'm trying to grow personal reputation.
no worse?
I'm well beyond the stage of my career where I'm trying to grow personal reputation, add to my curriculum vitae and resume, etc. I do, however, think about everything, every decision, every interaction, every meeting, even the willingness to participate in this podcast with you today, up through the lens of how can it help others? How can we, as I said earlier, uplift others? And I really like that definition of servant leadership that you shared, and I will try to remember it. I'll actually write it down after we finish because it reflects both internally looking for the individuals in the organization for whom I have responsibility today and tomorrow and into the future, but it also very solidly reflects the community service. At the end of the day, a public university system serves the community. I mean, my job is to always begin by the question of what's good for the people of the communities we serve, what's good for Nebraska, what's good for our nation, in order to enhance and strengthen, create what we like to call affordability and accessibility for higher education, push back the frontiers of high impact research, and of course, engage solidly with the rural and urban communities that we serve every day. I mean, those are the core mission sets of what we do, and all of those can be viewed through the lens of servant leadership.
One of the bits of supporting tools that seems to be a specialty of Nebraska is this idea of psychological strengths. Thank you for sharing your Clifton strengths, which in the top 10 are achiever, learner, ideation, individualization, responsibility, connectedness, arranger, belief, strategic, and developer. What maybe setting aside the official ranking, um, do you have a favorite strength? And then more in general, like how do you see some of these strengths playing out through the work that you do?
As I have learned more and more about the Clifton strengths, I've become a bigger and bigger fan. And frankly, before I moved to Nebraska, I knew that they existed, but I really wasn't aware of how broad and deep they were, and how much they're actually used in business and industry and education and in different areas as well. And so one of the first things I did when I became a Nebraskan was, of course, to participate in the Clifton Strength Survey. And as you just read, the top 10, that's where I land. I've actually participated more than once, and interestingly, they come up pretty much the same. There's good reproducible reliability, at least as my experiences. So, I first of all, it's a relatively unusual collection in the top 10. And even in the top five, it's a relatively unusual collection in speaking with Jim Clifton and others about the strengths. Uh, they all resonate to me, eh, but I would say the two that probably pop up the most are learner, that is to say, I'm constantly looking for ways to improve in things that I do, learn more about myself, learn more about others, but particularly learn how to be a better servant leader. And, leadership is not a lifetime achievement award. It comes from experience and a dedication, and a desire to continually want to do better. And that it goes hand in hand with the strength of responsibility. That is to say, responsible to others, to our students, to our faculty and staff, to the communities that we serve, to the legacy and the core mission of the university. I do believe that leadership is something that has to be learned and practiced and improved on a daily and nearly an hourly basis. And I hope that the basic premises that I believe in, and that I share as often as I can, inspire others who are interested in leadership roles in the future. We have a number of leadership academies, development groups, professional development groups, etc., that I am always honored to speak at, for that exact reason, to talk about my journey, what I've learned, what's worked well, what hasn't worked well, and to just continue to share those experiences in ways that they can uplift others and build a future generation of committed leaders.
Thank you for reflecting on that. I'm looking at your strengths, and as I'm looking at the Greenleaf servant leadership concept, I'm seeing the connectedness. I'm guessing that may be one of the vehicles by which you're sensing the how people are doing overall in communities, and then I'm seeing the individualization and developer there, and that is um, focused. Those could be, I see, focused on the well-being of the individuals involved with the ship of which you lead. Um, I'm guessing that you may or may not be. I don't know if this is still a thing, but the Great Navy of the state of Nebraska. I might be butchering the way that that came across. I know at one point, in hearing about Nebraska and its, I believe its status as a triple landlocked state. That they have an honorific navy. First person that I heard talk about that was a theologian by the name of Martin Marty. This was He was the inaugural speaker when they started a religious studies department at the University of Texas. But um, well, what do you think of Nebraska having a navy? And are you an admiral in this navy? Is that in the future?
Well, I actually am an admiral in the esteemed Navy of the state of Nebraska, and And it is an honorific title. However, I will tell you that Nebraska, I believe, of all of the U.S. states, has the most navigable waterways of any state. So I think it is fitting that there is an admiralty of the state. I have truthfully never navigated the waters of the state of Nebraska. But, in our state, water is extremely important because of the huge agricultural footprint that we produce every year and the impact on feeding our nation, creating sustainable fuels, and so many other things. But yeah, no, I was quite honored to be bestowed this admiralty by one of the former governors of the state. And it is a recognition of leadership. I've been had the opportunity to be honored as Nebraska's most honored citizen by the Exarban Foundation and other such things. And I don't look for any of that stuff. To the contrary, I do my very best to avoid it. I'm always nominating others and declining those types of things. But they do connect directly to this concept of positivity and this concept of servant leadership. Because I think, what is not captured in the Gallup strengths is this total sense of positivity. And you can describe that in many different ways, but to me, it's always trying to see the cup as half full when presented with challenges, to try to find the opportunity embedded in those challenges, and to try to share that, no matter what the situation may be, to be open and transparent and truthful, of course. Truth telling is a very, very important consideration in all leadership, as is the ability to communicate that, but also to try to maintain a positive attitude and to uplift others. You always get the best out of people when you can maintain a positive attitude. And that is one of the core concepts of leadership, is to bring out the very best in others. And I think one of the ways to do that uh, is really to be a good communicator and to have a true sense of positivity in that communication style.
That is something that feels as if it's coming from experience rather than theoretical observations. So I'm glad you're exercising your admiralship in various ways, such as being president of the University of Nebraska system. Is in being the ninth, is this a chain? I'm thinking historically maybe that goes back to a Woody Varner, or is there a different
Now,
lineage
Woody
for that part?
was the first president in 1968. So the University of Nebraska actually goes back to 1859 when the university was first founded in Lincoln. And as one of the first members of the so-called land grant university system under the Morrill Act, and continued to thrive ever since then. But the different campuses were pulled together by legislative action in 1968, and Woody Varner was the first president at that time. Yep.
I'm academic history is not one of my primary fortes. Was there kind of a movement, at the time towards consolidation or integration across universities and states, or were we? Do you know if we were like leading that, or it was a trend?
There have been some, you look at any university system in the country, of which there are
Mhm.
many, many, and there are no two that look alike. And there are
Okay.
always instances where university systems are growing in different parts of the country on the thought that you can consolidate and become more efficient and more effective. And there
Mhm.
are others that remain very independent and very successful. So, having not been here back in 1968 and the years leading up to that, I can only assume that the theory was that if you brought the parts together, that the sum would be stronger than the parts. And indeed, we are, because all of our campuses across the 500-mile wide state of Nebraska are all different, with both undergraduate, graduate, and professional programs. We have approximately 83 extension offices. We serve all of the 95 counties of the state with healthcare and so many other different areas, very tightly tied through the land grant system to the agricultural sector. As you know, we're not only large row crop producers of corn and beans, but also huge producers of cattle and pork. And that brings you right back to the earth and to the water supply and to the safety of the people of the state of Nebraska. But over time, uh, very successful industries in banking and insurance and manufacturing, architecture, engineering, construction, and so many others, and of course, healthcare have dramatically grown in the state. And indeed, we are now in the healthcare sector one of the top ranked and rated healthcare organizations in the United States and just continue to grow. And I like to believe that our history of aggregating the parts and making a stronger piece together all fed into that.
It's probably fun to be the leader of a University of Nebraska system, where if you have an idea, there's probably a lot of people that you can talk to about ideas. Uh, but other than something like that, what else do you like to do for fun?
Well, fun for me is at this stage being with my family. I have two wonderful children. I've been married for more than 50 years to a fellow physician who I went to med school with, and have two adorable twin grandchildren. And we have a number of, championship teams. So I get to go to the March Madness and bowl games and volleyball championships, wrestling, you name it. We had a really good run in March Madness this year for both the men's and women's basketball teams. We really had a very, very good run in baseball and then softball. We got into the Women's College World Series this year. And in so doing, I get to know the coaches and I get to know many of the student athletes as well. And absolutely fascinating. I also mentor a lot of undergraduate students, probably at this stage, close to about 175 students. I mentor all of the students in the entire system that achieved a perfect ACT score when they were applying to college. And I mentor quite a few students who are in the pre-health professions track, meaning pre-med, pre-dent, pre-nursing, etc. Uh, but aside from that, travel a lot, mostly for work. Have a lot to do with our federal relationships with the Departments of War and Education, the Department of Health and Human Services, Department of Homeland Security. And again, in many ways, success in leadership roles is built upon solid and trusted relationships. So spending time with other people from time to time, breaking bread, and looking for ways to, again, be successful and pay it forward usually results in goodness for the university.
Thank you for sharing on that. There's I think, kind of a delightful trend. I don't know how widespread it is. There's a Professor Dave Thomas at the University of Denver that is part of a collaborative with a colleague there that they call themselves professors at play. Somehow the idea seems to have gotten to the Center for Transformative Teaching at UNL, and they uh, put on what they called a playposium, where they're thinking about incorporating playfulness into one's teaching strategies or pedagogy. And is this something that is encouraged or discouraged? Is it a group of sort of maybe rebellious academics that got something play-based to go through? What are your thoughts on playfulness as adults?
Well, certainly it's been shown that if you can, quote, gamify education to some extent, that you have better adoption and retention rates. It depends, of course, probably not true in cardiac surgery, where I spent the majority of my clinical career, but certainly true in other areas as well. Students tend to be competitive and they want to continue to improve themselves. They want to compete with others. And so, to the extent that you can gamify that competition in a way that produces sustainable education in important areas, it's useful. People learn in different ways. Some learn by reading, some learn by listening, others learn by doing. Just by example, you probably can't learn how to play golf by reading a textbook, I'm guessing. Not that I've ever been successful in that, although I did try several times. And so it all depends upon what you're teaching and how individuals learn. Different individuals have different learning styles, and that's clearly been shown scientifically. And so gamification and using play probably is useful for some learners and probably not so useful for others. It's probably useful for some amount of subject content and not for others.
Looking forward to the future, what do you see, or what would you like to see on the horizon? And one thought that just came to me briefly is over time, there seems to be a sharing of educational leadership between New York and Nebraska. And I believe we had a governor that became a president of the new school, one Bob Carey. And
Yep,
it
he
seems
did.
like
He
New
did.
York's returned the favor and sent yourself here to Nebraska. So that's just kind of an interesting dynamic. But yeah, what would you like to see in
Oh,
the
I know
future?
Bob well, and he's a great leader and is a good friend, and as you say, still lives and thrives in New York City. So, as far as the future is concerned, I am really very optimistic about the future of higher education, particularly public higher education. I mean, there is no other vehicle other than education, and particularly higher education to create social mobility, to create long-standing financial success, to create health and wellness for individuals and families. And while people may talk about the cost of higher education, and indeed I do understand that at least the sticker price across our country continues to go up, I would inspire others to just look at the value of higher education. What do you get back over a lifetime? Uh, what are the relationships that you'll form with your fellow students, faculty, and staff members, community members as a result of doing this? And how is that going to produce a fulfilled and a fulfilling life into the future? For me, it was everything. Without the scholarships to go to college and med school and work study and student loans and all of those things, and believe me, in those days I really didn't have it easy. I had to work really hard to get to and to achieve the educational goals that I set out for. But I've never made a better investment, and that same thing is absolutely true today.
Thank you for making it possible for so many others and tending well to this big ship and having that strengths focus and the servant leader's heart. And thank you for being a guest on the show.
My pleasure. Come visit.
Will do. Thank you.